people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
To the mother relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Former WBA super lightweight champion Rolando Romero says, I don't have to change. Boxing really needs me. Rolando Romero is ready to get his career back on track following his recent knockout losses to Isaac Cruz and Gervonta Davis. Romero, 15-2, 13 KOs, will get a bounce-back opportunity on September 14th when he takes on Manuel Jaimes on a card headlined by Canelo Alvarez's fight against Edgar Berlanga at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. The always confident and quirky Romero sounded carefree when discussing his upcoming clash against the little-known Jaimes, a Northern Californian who built up half of his career fighting unheralded competition in Tijuana, Mexico's boxing circuit.
And how is that different from Rolly?
He's just happy to have the opportunity, Romero told Boxing Scene while fiddling with an origami crane. I'm not improving, I'm not changing, I forgot how to change. I don't have to change. I'm me, and everybody wants to be me and look like me. Boxing really needs me. The matchup will mark the first time the 6-year professional Jaimes is fighting in a 10-rounder. Romero himself graduated from fighting 6 rounds to 12 with only one 8-rounder in between less than 5 years ago. You prepare for the fight, you're going to fight, it all comes down to one thing. Balls, said Romero. In fact, they should bring back 15-round fights. There would be fewer split decisions and robberies. Romero last fought in March and was dominated by Isaac Cruz en route to an 8th-round TKO loss. Romero lost the WBA super lightweight title he had picked up during his controversial 9th-round stoppage win against Ishmael Barroso last year, when referee Tony Weeks prematurely waved off the fight with Barroso ahead on all 3 judges' scorecards. I don't care for the 140-pound weight class. I care about Rolly, said Romero. I just do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. I can go for a title shot next, or take the next 4 years off and go explore the world. My long-term goal is to have some babies. I really want some kids. An ideal 2025 would be having kids, traveling a lot, and trying out a lot of new things I haven't tried before, and just enjoying myself.
Would you like a juice box with your chicken nuggets, Rolly? He's a good boy.
Romero has been singing a more serious tune in recent weeks, preparing for Jaimes. Romero has said he's training with coach Ishmael Salas to refine his technique, increase his power, and sharpen his mental game. He also labeled Jaimes as a tough opponent he's not taking lightly, and that a win would be a step in the right direction to next face a bigger name in the loaded 140-pound division. I don't care for a rematch versus Isaac Cruz. I had a bad day that night, said Romero. It happens to everyone. I was off before I even got in the ring. It happens. It's boxing. And he's in a compromising position, whether you're aware of it or not. You already had the money fight, the quote-unquote money fight, with Gervonta Davis, and you already fought Isaac Cruz. There are not that many big money fights out there for Rolly Romero between 140 and 147. There are even fewer that he can win.
He should retire.
Wait a minute now, you don't think that's a little bit harsh?
Who is he gonna beat? Who of any substance, of any note, is he gonna win a belt from at 140? Who of any substance or any note is he gonna win a belt from at 147? What fight does this guy win?
What big fight against what big name? Which one?
He should retire.
Do us all a favor. Rid us all of his stupidity. The eccentric Romero declined to reveal what was bothering him heading into the contest against Isaac Cruz. He said he had a bad day. What was bad about it?
Did Mom get the wrong Lunchables?
I don't want to disclose that information. The feds are watching, said Romero. The 29-year-old ended the conversation by taking an idiosyncratic page out of heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk's book of classic sayings that describe his fight against Jaime. I'm very feel about it.
29-year-old.
You're telling me Rolly Romero is coming up on 30?
Wow.
This quirky character is a bit of an idiot savant.
Yeah, minus the savant part.
It's often said that Rolly is so funny, and he's so popular. Though to what extent is he funny? And to what extent is he popular? In the fights that have followed his knockout loss to Gervonta Davis, he's been fighting on undercards, not headlining his own shows. He fought on undercards before he fought Gervonta, and he's still fighting on undercards now. So whatever popularity he has amassed, it's not enough that he's headlining his own shows. So is he really popular? Who pays to see Rolly fight?
Think is a star emoji maker. Cruz, Rolly, Barrios. Yeah, that's kind of like the Mayweather effect too, right? Like, cause Canelo fights dudes and they ain't turning into stars.
But Rolly is a star, that's what you're saying. Rolly is a star now? By fighting on everybody's undercards. I mean, if he were a star, wouldn't he be headlining his own shows? His own main events? Yeah, Rolly is more known than some other fighters. Some far more skilled than he is. He's more known online.
Whatever that's worth.
He's more known for things that he says, his sound bites, than his actual fights and his actual performances. Rolly has no signature wins. He's a guy Gervonta Davis knocked out. He's a guy they put on a pedestal for no other reason than Gervonta knocked him out. In an effort to beef up Gervonta's resume and make it seem better than what it actually is, they're willing to put Rolly on a pedestal. They'll go as far as saying that he's a star. But if he's a star, why is he fighting on undercards instead of headlining his own shows, his own main events?
Isn't that what stars do?
So the other day I watched a video by comedian Corey Holcomb about struggle rappers, what he likes to call struggle rappers. Rappers that have very good online metrics and get a lot of engagement online that doesn't seem to be translating into money in the real world. Rappers like Ice Spice and Sexy Red.
Because people love to watch you online where it's free and they don't have to pay anything. Kind of like how people like to see Rolly and hear what stupid things he says.
Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, a lot of people know who Rolly is, but very few of them are watching him because of his boxing.
If your online metrics are not translating into money in the real world, in real life, are you really popular? Are you?
If it's not translating into real ticket sales from real customers, are you popular?
Or are we now going to redefine what it means to be popular in the sport of boxing to accommodate this mediocre character?
Looks like it.
In men's welterweight news, another look at that back-and-forth exchange between WBA regular champion Eimantas Stanionis and Eddie Hearn. In reference to an offer Eddie says he made Eimantas for a Jaron Boots Ennis fight, Unification match.
In so many words, what Eimantas Stanionis said was that they didn't offer enough.
Enough money. He told Eddie, make a real offer. This is why I didn't even hear about it. The focus of that conversation has been Eimantas Stanionis versus Jaron Boots Ennis, but there is a second layer. Eimantas Stanionis versus Shakram Giyasov. As Eddie Hearn stated, I'm confused. You called me a liar and said no one reached out to you or your team. Giyasov is your mandatory, but we'd love to make the unification also. You see, it may work out to where Eimantas Stanionis is painting himself into a corner, into a situation where he's going to end up making less money than he was offered anyway. I don't think it pays out to fight Giyasov what it would pay out to unify with Jaron Ennis.
Yeah, but how can Eimantas Stanionis unify when he's not full champion yet?
Terrence Crawford still is the full WBA welterweight champion, at least momentarily, though what you figure is that had Eimantas accepted Eddie Hearn's offer, they could get the wheels in motion to make him a full champion going in. Full WBA champion to make that a unification match.
Because Terrence isn't coming back down, and everybody knows that.
He's already given up the other 3 alphabet titles he was in possession of. This is the last one, and it's only a matter of time before he gives up the WBA. What you figure is that if the fight with Stanionis and Boots were made, that would help to speed up that process, to make that a unification match.
That's what you figure.
Although Stanionis does not seem receptive to Eddie Hearns' offer, and as a backup plan, they have Shakram Giyasov in position. Shakram Giyasov, standout amateur of Uzbekistan, who's been fighting under the Matchroom banner for several fights now. I'm sure you've seen him. And if you haven't, Shakram Giyasov of Uzbekistan has a professional record of 16 wins with no losses, no draws, 9 knockouts. He could be a handful for a Stanionis. So I know that there are other fighters, other welterweights, just other guys at or around these weights with more of a profile than Shakram Giyasov. But a fighter's ability to fight is not always gauged by his profile. Sometimes it's those unknown fighters you need to be careful around.
Here's an example.
Remember that before Romero versus Barroso, more people were familiar with Rolly Romero than Ishmael Barroso. But in the fight, you saw that Ishmael Barroso was the better fighter, even though he wasn't that well known.
And that's why they robbed him.
I'm just telling you. Shakram Giyasov may not be that well known, but he could prove to be a handful for a Stanionis. And if Matchroom hits the gas on that fight, puts pressure on the WBA to order it, a Stanionis will be painted into a corner, a situation where he ends up making less money anyway.
If you didn't like the offer for Boots, you're really not going to like the offer for Giyasov.
Stanionis may be holding out to unify with someone else. Another champion on his own side of the street, Mario Barrios. The problem with that strategy is Mario's name is attached to a Pacquiao fight. He may end up fighting Manny Pacquiao later on this year, not a Stanionis. So while he's doing that, what are you going to be doing?
So if the WBA decides to order Stanionis versus Giyasov, Stanionis will have painted himself into a corner.
Matchroom isn't going to offer you for Giyasov what they may have just offered you for Boots. And if you don't take that offer, you know what happens? It goes to a purse bid, at which point what you then have to ask yourself is, does the PBC have the money to beat Matchroom at the purse bid?
Stanionis versus Giyasov is not the kind of fight you break the bank over.
If you're familiar with the fighters, then you'll know that aesthetically, it could prove to be a good fight, a very good action fight, but it's not a hot ticket because not that many people are familiar with a Stanionis, and even less people are familiar with Shakram Giyasov. I only wonder if the WBA will oblige them. I only wonder if the WBA will order the Giyasov fight, because if they do, then yeah, Stanionis is up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. And I think Stanionis needs to keep that in mind while he turns his nose up at Eddie Hearn's offer to unify with Boots. That offer is likely bigger and better than what he would make with Giyasov, whether Matchroom gets the rights or the PBC gets the rights.
And what does the PBC have planned for this guy anyway? If Barrios is fighting Pacquiao, who are they going to have him fighting?
I would say Keith Thurman, but I don't know that Keith Thurman can actually still make 147.
Gary Antoine Russell, maybe?
Maybe. Isn't he in line to fight the winner of Puello versus Sandor Martin? Would he be willing to move up in weight to fight a Stanionis? I really don't know. The bottom line here is, Eddie's got more than just one piece on the board.
He may not be able to force you to fight Jaron Ennis, but you may be forced to fight his other guy,
Shakram Giyasov. And that ain't gonna be for big money, regardless of who gets the rights. Big trouble for not big money.
That's the skinny.
Now, Eddie Hearn has said they've made offers to Jaron Boots Ennis for unification matches to all the other welterweight world champions or champions to be, like Stanionis. But all three have rejected them. We've made offers to Brian Norman, Mario Barrios, and a Stanionis. All have been rejected. We've made Top Rank 2 offers now for Brian Norman. Both rejected. He said they've made a counter-offer. We've not received any counter-offer, but I want to make that fight. If Brian Norman has the balls and is genuine, let's get this fight made.
In my previous video, we talked about how Brian Norman claims they made a quote-unquote counter-offer.
Where I don't think it was a counter-offer. I think they countered. They definitely countered looking for more money, but that's not a counter-offer, as you're not offering anything. You're not offering to pay for the fight at a price that you set. You're just asking them to give you more money.
That's your quote-unquote counter-offer.
These games. I never thought it was going to be easy for Boots to unify this division. Even with Matchroom in his corner paying for his fights and making the offers, it would just be a repeat of what we've already seen the last few years, that the world titles are divided on different sides of the street. So would it be better if Jaron Ennis moved up? Would the situation be easier at 154 than it is at 147? And I'm not so sure.
Why not?
Seen rising sentiments that The junior middleweight division has bigger names than welterweight, that for trying to go undisputed at welterweight, it wouldn't be that strong a run anyway. Why doesn't Boots just go to 154, where there are bigger names and better fights? Well, on what side of the street are those names? You're not having any luck with Stanionis, who's on the PBC side of things, but you know who else is over there? Sebastian Fundora, Tim Zoo, Errol Spence.
You're not having luck with the PBC guys at 147, and Mario Barrios and Eimantas Stanionis. So what says you would have any more luck with the guys at 154?
And at 154, you wouldn't even be a champion. You wouldn't have a belt of your own. You'd just be a challenger among challengers.
Virgil Ortiz is at 154.
Yeah, and Virgil Ortiz is with Golden Boy Promotions. We already see Golden Boy's been sandbagging it for a Stevenson versus Cepeda fight. You don't think they'd sandbag it when it comes to an Ortiz versus Boots fight?
I see a lot of people saying it, that Boots should go to 154, but I'm not sure that going to 154 is any kind of a solution. And if he did, he wouldn't be a champion up there anyway, so what leverage would he have?
Like, going to 154 is just gonna melt all the problems away.
I don't think so. If it did, I would make that recommendation myself. But near as I can tell, if you're not having luck with the PBC guys at 147, you're not going to have more luck with them at 154.
You say that Terrence Crawford is up there. Terrence Crawford is at 154, so maybe you can go up there and fight him for his WBA title, but he seems focused on a Canelo Alvarez fight. The recent reports seem to indicate that it is Canelo or bust for Terrence Crawford.
Not that Jaron Ennis is after Terrence Crawford anyway, because I don't think he is. I don't think he ever was. But still, Terrence has bigger fish to fry. He's focused on other things.
Just addressing that suggestion that if things ain't working out at 147, Boots should go to 154. The people saying it haven't thought about it. They haven't thought it through. You go to 154, PBC could still freeze you out up there. Golden Boy may not want to work with you.
They all have their own plans and their own bottom line. Really isn't any different at 154. Thus, the recommendation itself is a pseudo-intellectual platitude that doesn't offer a real solution. Quite.
And I'm not even a big fan of Jaron Ennis, but I am a big fan of unification matches, and I think they need to happen as often as possible so that there is less division in the sport. I don't like the attitudes at 147 from these would-be champions.
Or those who would enable them.
Automatically rushing to assumption, jumping to the conclusion that Eddie Hearn is a lowballing these guys. What's Eimantas Stanionis' highest purse? What's Brian Norman's highest purse? What's the most money those guys ever made for a fight? You're not fighting Boots, right? Who are you going to fight in your next fight? And what are you going to make for that fight versus what you've been offered to fight Boots? Because that'll tell a story. I think a lot of times in a sport, people like to play dumb. These attitudes we're seeing towards a Jaron Ennis unification match from Mario Barrios, from Eimantas Stanionis, and yes, even Brian Norman, are all centered around the risks associated with the fight. They're not just gonna do it.
You guys are playing dumb like you don't know that.
So maybe it's Jaron Ennis getting a taste of his own medicine, because when Terrence Crawford reached out via Black Prime to fight him, he acted with Terrence like Stanionis is acting with him, like Norman is acting with him. Maybe it's karma?
Barrios too.
And this is just the universe, Kismet, giving Jaron Ennis a taste of his own medicine. Maybe it is. But as a boxing fan, I want to see boxing matches, unifications.
You don't?
Or do you like that they're swerving him?
Because they are.